The conscious man.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast.
What is a conscious man? Michael Canales.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. Super stoked to have you, man.
I'm happy to be
You
here.
were like
bro.
one of the first people I thought of when I started this podcast because like every time you and I talk, it's just like since that the night that we had at that rave,
Yes.
and we just sat and talked for I don't know how long.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was just like, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
That was like the first night I felt like really connected to you. And obviously we were in the fellowship a few months before that. That wasn't the first time we met. That was like the second or
second
third.
time,
Yeah. But yeah, man, how you been?
I'm good. Yeah.
We went and did ayahuasca together. It's been just over a month now.
Yep.
So how's life been since then?
You know, it's been beautiful, but it's been hard at the same time. I think, you know, my experience with plant medicine is, I don't want to say love-hate, but it's not rainbows and unicorns, you know. It's really looking at the parts of me that I didn't even know I was shielding or I was protecting myself from. And so, like, a lot of that stuff just comes to the surface after a plant medicine ceremony. And it's working through that, how I'm navigating that. Am I reacting or am I responding, you know? And so, you know, I think a lot of that, my old behaviors come up for me to have an opportunity to do something different.
Yeah. It's interesting. So much of the medicine comes afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's what I realized is I didn't feel like I had much of an experience on ayahuasca, but like coming back into the matrix was like just this huge shift of like all these things that I was seeing differently, all these things that were making me uncomfortable. But yeah, it's interesting. But before we dive into that, tell a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
people can get to know you.
Absolutely. I'm 44. I'm from Santa Rosa, California. That's my hometown. I've been in Utah for 15 years now, this month, actually. And I came out here for rehab, recovering from opiates and alcohol and coke and all the things. And, found myself in rehab at 29 years old after 10 years of just full-on addiction. And I created a whole new life here in Utah. You know, came here with a backpack and kicking off of Suboxone and Oxycontin and, you know, dope sick for a week. And I did rehab for 90 days, did sober living for 7 months. And then I ended up chasing a dream of becoming a barber. And I became a barber in 2010, 11, and chased that dream all the way, just full max, you know, throttle. And I started Cutthroat Barbershop in 2015. I expanded it to 3 locations. I have 30 barbers that work for me. And, you know, that's what I do for work is I'm in the hair industry.
Cool. So you got 3 locations now. Where are they at?
West Valley is the first location, South Jordan, and Sandy.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're still cutting hair, or no? You're out of that, correct?
I do a little bit part-time. You know, I have some clients that I still take care of. But no, I don't cut hair full-time anymore.
So what do you do with your time?
What do I do with my time? Well, you know, we started me and my buddy Adam and our wives, Vadia and Caitlin. We started a thing called the Energy Stack. You know, and we have men's retreats,
Which is super fucking cool.
Which
I've been to one.
You've been to one, yep. And it's a hape ceremony with breath work and cold plunge, and it's all done with live music, and it's just a lot of fun, you know. And we introduce people basically to ceremony. You know, we open up sacred space, open up the directions. We serve them, you know, the sacred plant medicine of hape, which is a tobacco snuff. Get them grounded.
Tell a little bit about hape for people that don't know.
Sure. Hape is a ground up mapacho, which is jungle tobacco, and it's mixed with different ashes from different seeds and bark of the Amazon. And what they do is they mash it up into a powder, and they pray over it, they put their intention, they sing into it. And it's a tobacco snuff that's administered up the nose. It's blown up the nose. You don't sniff it. It's blown.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable,
it
especially
burns,
if you've never done it before.
Burns. It's very grounding. And in large doses, it can be purgative too.
Yeah. Brings you right back into your body.
Brings you right into your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hape experience, the way I like to explain it is with the intensity of what you're feeling with the burning and the tears and the spitting. I don't have time to think about work.
Yeah.
Or the outside world. I'm just right into my body, and I have my intention and my prayer. And then once that starts to subside, it's kind of like a shortcut. And I'm kind of with that intention.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we introduce a lot of people that have never even heard of Hape.
Shauna, the first time she ever did Hape was from you. You administered it to her.
That's right.
And she hated it. I explained to her a little bit more about what it was after, though, and she kind of understood and shifted her mindset a little bit. But I call the podcast The Conscious Man. So I like to ask everybody, what is a conscious man to you?
I think a conscious man is somebody that's aware of, really for me, is aware of my triggers. Because I think in triggers and the shifting of my energy is a lot, exposes of what's really going on underneath that trigger. And if I can be conscious of that, my wife's really good at triggering me, right?
They're usually the best ones.
Yeah, they're the best ones. They say your spouse is your biggest teacher.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And so I think a conscious man is somebody that's just really aware of their thoughts, their actions, and how they're responding to life.
Yeah, I like that. What got you into spirituality? Was it your addictions? I mean, what took you down that path? Because, we talk about what is a conscious man. Like the men that I'm bringing on this podcast, I consider to be conscious men. And I remember, one of the very first conversations you and I had actually at that rave was like, I just felt like this, and I've told you this before, I felt like this deep grandfather wisdom from you. Like just talking to you, I was like, this guy has some like really deep understanding. This is like a very conscious guy. And so I'm just wondering, was what, you started off deeply addicted to all sorts of different substances. So what took you down this path of like awareness?
Well, I think you just said it, was my history with alcohol and addiction. I had, in like the peak of it, I had some supernatural experiences happen to me. Like, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, where there was some dark forces that were apparent in my house. I had a situation where I was in bed and I was smoking Oxycontin every day, fully addicted, just selling drugs, and that was just my life, from when I woke up to when I went to bed. And I used to get sleep paralysis, and this one night I got sleep paralysis again, and I'm awake, and I was living with my ex-girlfriend, my girlfriend at the time, and we used to sleep with the TV on in our room. And I remember waking up and being fully conscious. TV was on. She was laying on her left side with her back towards me, and something started growling in my ear, like deep growl, and it was terrifying. And then that growl turned into her voice, and she was screaming at me, but she was dead asleep. Like, I can kind of see her face. She's dead asleep.
You're paralyzed.
I'm paralyzed, and I'm looking at her, and I'm hearing her screaming at me like, "You piece of shit!" All this stuff, And the growling got louder, and I was just terrified. And I remember just praying. That's all I knew to do. So fast forward, when I got clean, and I went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I dove deep in AA saved my life. You know, that's the truth. That's what got me clean. And so I knew there was something. There was other stuff that was happening in my house too. Like I had a half pipe in my garage, and I used to go in there and smoke in the dark, pitch black, and I'm smoking on tinfoil, these pills. And this one night in the pitch black, something grabs a skateboard and starts skating my ramp in the middle of the night. And I knew it, I acknowledged it, and I just sat there and I just kept getting high, you know. And there was something skating my ramp, you know. And so I was having these experiences, shadows, all this stuff, you know, just really low vibrational lifestyle I had.
Yeah.
And then when I got clean, I went through the 12 steps. The 12 steps is basically a spiritual program to getting in contact with the higher power of my own understanding. And so that's where my spirituality was birthed.
Okay.
So yeah, it was Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, is where I found God, essentially. And so, and then it evolved years later, 12 years into sobriety, into plant medicine ceremonies, because I kind of plateaued there, and I wanted to know more. But I think for me, it was a decision to expand on my own personal spirituality. So it wasn't like I was getting high or drunk like I used to, or snorting lines and smoking pills and stuff. It was a completely different motive. And so that's how I looked at it, and that's how I continue to look at it. You know, it's a spiritual, it's a spiritual matter. So, yeah, that's how I got into plant medicine. I got into plant medicine after my wife. She started going. We argued about it, right?
Okay.
And so she ended up going to 3 ayahuasca sits, and you know, I was in full fear. I didn't know she was going to start drinking again and go off the handle, because she has a whole past in addiction. And so I watched her. I saw the change in her, and then I made the decision for myself to see what this was about. And then ayahuasca just opened up so many doors for me. The energy stack, even music. I never even played an instrument until I went to an ayahuasca sit and I heard a handpan. And then I fell in love with it. That was my first instrument.
Interesting.
What was a handpan? Was after an ayahuasca sit.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that too, because I had something open up the past week with a handpan. So I've been doing this. It's called parts work. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book No Bad Parts or Internal Family Systems. No. It's basically just a way to do inner child work. And it talks about how our brain fragments into all types of different personalities, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
you were telling me about this book from Hutan.
Yeah,
right?
Hutan's the one that told me about it. And you know, he told me about this IFS, and you know, just our very first coaching call. He's like, "You're gonna be crying a lot," you know, and I'm like, "Oh, bro, I fucking got this." You know, I've been doing this I've been doing inner child work for a while. And as soon as we had that call, dude, like all this shit started opening up. All of a sudden, I'm like crying 3 or 4 times a day, like really diving deeper. I read this book, and then I start to do this parts work, and I start to identify these different parts of myself that are fighting against each other, that are making allies with each other, that are protecting other parts. And so I identified these 2 parts of myself that was the perfectionist and the rebel, and they thought they were balancing each other out, and they were fighting against each other in some ways, and they were allies in other ways. And so I uncovered both these. I let them feel the things that they needed to feel, and then just like this past week, I dug a little bit deeper, and I found they were protecting another part that was a younger part of myself that was fear. They were protecting fear. And, you know, as I got to know them, they kind of opened the gates for me to dig a little bit deeper and find fear. And so I had a conversation with this, and it was like he was like 4 to 5 years old. And, you know, just basically had this conversation with him where it's like, hey, you You don't need to take on the fear. Like, I've got this now. I'm a responsible adult. Like, I can handle things. And, you know, the way that I've been doing this work, and I think there's a few different ways to do it, but is basically, you know, you see that part of yourself. And so I went in and I saw him. I let him feel the things that he needed to feel, which was scared and you know, hurt, and he felt the things he needed to feel. And then I said, okay, I've got us now. Now, what would you like your purpose to be? Because you don't have to be scared anymore. And he was like, I want to play music, and I want to have fun, and I want to sing.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know if you remember, I've been talking to you guys, like, I don't get the musical thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, there's something in me that's just like, nah, you know, and like no one in my family ever plays music. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll play the handpan. Well, you'll sing. I'll make sure that you're in charge of us having fun. And then I went and played the handpan, and it was actually, we had people over, and dude, I was playing in front of everybody, and it was like, oh, I'm getting a little bit better. Like, I'm getting the hang of it. So it was like, it was really cool. So that's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah. I can totally relate. I mean, my family, no one plays instruments. I didn't grow up with music, and you know, I didn't touch an instrument until I was 41 years old.
But we all have it in us.
Yes,
we all. It's just blocked for some people, and it's just been very blocked for me. I took trumpet in like 7th grade and just fucking hated it, you know. And it was just some sort of block that I had that I think was just that a part of me that was taking life a little bit too seriously and didn't believe that he could have fun. And it was cool. It was just a really interesting experience that I had, that like getting to know myself on a deeper level, and then finding out like he wants to play music. He wants to create sounds that, you know, are beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I found with music that it is a beautiful way to get present, because we always talk about getting into the now moment, getting into the present. And I found with playing an instrument, it's kind of like Hape. All I'm thinking about is playing that instrument. I'm fully present in that now moment.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really enjoy about playing an instrument. And now I play the native flute and the frame drum and the djembe, and it's just evolved. Yeah. You know, and now I play music every day.
And then you're jamming with the boys in the jungle of Ecuador. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about our journey in the jungle for 8 days. We bunked together, which I was super fucking happy to be, like, you know, in the same cabin as you, just because we went there together. You know, like I said, you have like this grandfather energy that just honestly like makes me feel safe. Yeah. Like I feel very safe with you. Like you're my cool uncle, you know, and we've developed a really cool relationship really quickly. And so we got the opportunity to kind of be each other's accountability partners while we were in the jungle together. Yep. But tell a little bit about what your experience was in the jungle. What I realized with the Quechua people is that they're just so connected to nature. They're just one with nature. Their food, their medicine, their jewelry, all that cool jewelry we bought. And I remember having a special moment with Don Juan. I had all those mosquito bites on my legs. Remember, I was wrecked compared to everyone else. And he got word of my mosquito bites, and which, by the way, those mosquito bites lasted for like
forever.
A month at least after. Yes. Those were not normal Utah mosquitoes.
They were brutal. And
that was probably the hardest part of coming out of the jungle, was like that in and of itself was like, I don't know if I want to go do that again.
Yeah. And it's like, I used everyone's mosquito repellent. I tried everything. And so Don Juan, he saw my bites.
Don Luis.
No, it was Don Juan that did it.
Juan.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And
so Juan is the younger one, and then Don Luis is his dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so Juan, during lunch, I see him mashing up these plants, and he's putting it into a jar, you know, with a spray bottle. And so he calls me over after lunch, and him, his wife and Pedro were over there, and they're like, get down to your underwear. So I take everything off, and I'm sitting on a bench. And he proceeds to just lather me with his own hands, him and his wife, and they're inspecting like each and every one. And I was joking with them, like, the wife was I had kind of a pussy one, and she was squeezing out. I'm like, just messing with her, and they all just started laughing. And they were asking about my tattoos in Spanish, and I was like, yeah, se llama Pedro, and they were laughing, and so, and I'm just sitting in my underwear, in the jungle. The takeaway was that they're just medicine people.
Yeah.
And then the other, one of our other brothers that was having fertility issues, and they had the one-man sweat lodges that we were doing every day. They put that big pot of boiling 21 plants, and we'd stir it and just have this steam bath, and so that they get word that he's been trying to have a baby, and so you go into this little one-man sweat lodge and you just sit on a log. They give you this pot and they
steam your balls.
Yeah, and so they cut out this hole in the log, and they put a pot underneath it. And they say, "Go hang your balls in the hole."
I didn't know that they initiated that. I thought maybe he had asked them for some sort of a ceremony to help him.
I don't know how it all came about. Yeah. All I know is he was butt naked in the, steaming his balls, and I was just like, "Whoa!" Like, so it was so much more than the ayahuasca. Yeah, I had some profound stuff come to me in that, but just witnessing the way the Quechua live and how connected they are to the earth, and how they've just really grounded in their existence with the planet and how they care for it. He's a conservationist. He protects the jungle. He buys land. Yeah. Like that's his life's work.
And it's just this energy of really, like with what I've seen with any type of healer, is they don't have any sort of healing powers above and beyond just love, right? And you could feel that so deeply with them. Like they were just happy. They were super open. They just had huge hearts, and they just loved. Right? Like you could feel it in everything that they did, the way they took care of us, the way they set the space for the ceremony, the way they cared for the plants and the forest and their home. It's just this deep energy of love, right? Because they have an understanding that like they're just a tool. Yeah. And the more you love and the more open you are, the more power from source can come through you. Right? And that's like what I've really learned too, is like, because I've kind of felt this calling in a sort of sense that like, I am some sort of a medicine man for people, but I am just a tool, and all I have to do, I don't have to fix anything, right? All I have to do is connect and love, and then turn people back to themselves. And, it's ultimately everyone's own heart that heals them anyways.
Yep.
I don't have I can't do anything special to you. It's just showing you more of God. Yep. Showing you more of yourself.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so,
I think a good shaman says, or I used to sit with this lady, and she says the medicine is the teacher. She's like, I'm not the teacher. I'm just holding the space.
Yeah.
I'm holding the setting and the container, making sure it's safe for you guys.
Yeah.
But it's the ayahuasca or the plant medicine that's going to teach you, and it's a remembering. It's a remembering, oh, yeah, I am divine. Oh, yeah, I have incarnated into a human body. Oh, yeah, I have a soul, and there's spirit guides, and there's a whole energetic spiritual realm all around us that I totally was disconnected from. And it's just a remembering. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer that we knew exactly what we were signing up for before we came here. I think that we kind of mapped out our lives. Maybe we sat next to God in some sort of a sense, and like, yeah, this is what I want to go. This is what I want to experience. And then he was like, okay, now you're going to forget, and everything is just going to be a remembering of like, oh yeah, I did plan this all out, you know, like, and we had this conversation actually in the jungle with everybody. We talked about free will, and I'm a big believer that free will is a distortion, that it's an illusion. And because I'm actually reading this book called The Law of One. Have you heard of that?
The Book of Ra.
The raw material from Ra.
Yeah.
It's just a channeled message from Ra. And they basically say that. They say that, free will is a distortion. But we don't have any of this experience without the whole idea of oneness being distorted and separated down into what we experience here. And so like if you think about free will in that way, where it's like, do we have free will? And it's just like yes and no to me. Yes and no. Yes, we have free will as much as you and I are separate. Like, are you separate from me? Yes and no. Do I have free will? Yes and no. I think that's the most simple way I can explain it, is like, you zoom out, we're all one. We're all connected. We are all God. You zoom in, yes, we're playing a game of separateness, right? But what's the ultimate truth? Everything is one.
Yeah.
Everything is God.
Yeah.
So if you want to like go that deep, it's like the ultimate truth would be like, yeah, free will is a distortion that allows us to play this game, but ultimately it is a distortion, and the truth is that there's only one being that has free will, and it's God. Which is also us, but it's not this separate part of myself that thinks that it exists, right? Like my ego, because like you say, do I have free will? Ultimately, I'm talking to my ego, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like the way Dolores Cannon puts it. Like what you're saying about the soul contracts and agreements before we incarnate. And what she says is that with your big contracts, like for me, for example, I'm going to have 4 kids, right? That was agreed upon. I'm going to struggle with addiction and alcoholism. That was a big contract, right? I'm going to become a barber as a profession.
So you have these points.
So what she says is that you have these pillars that are unavoidable.
Destiny,
right? She even says we choose how we die, but she says in between that is free will. It's like the day-to-day stuff.
That's kind of where the game is played, in between the destiny.
Yep, that's right. But you're still going to hit these pillars.
That's interesting.
Right. And so I always thought that was a fascinating theory.
Yeah, I kind of think that's a kind of a good in-between, but between like you have control within these guidelines that we give you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are playing this game, and this game does have rules. And it's interesting in that book. I literally just started this book today, but it's got me thinking about like what God really is. And I don't know if you follow Aaron Abke.
Yes, yeah,
love him.
That's
dude.
how I know of the Book of One.
Yeah, exactly. Same. Like I just was listening to a podcast the other day, and he talks about it all the time. So I'm like, I gotta listen to this, because I've listened to 2 of his podcasts, and almost everything he says has resonated. And it's interesting because like you've obviously probably learned a lot of the same stuff, because I've gone down the whole Dolores Cannon thing. And did you ever read Jesus and the Essenes?
No, I'm reading The Convoluted Universe right now.
Okay, yeah. So that was actually the first book I read from Dolores Cannon, was Jesus and the Essenes. And Aaron Abke goes into how Jesus was an Essene, and there were essentially 3 different sects of the Jewish community. There were the Sadducees, which were basically the elites. There were the Pharisees, which were just like the general Jewish population. And then there were the Essenes, which were kind of more like the outcasts. And the Essenes essentially followed more of what Enoch had taught instead of Abraham. And they kind of believed that with Abraham, the Jewish belief system kind of got off. And he goes into how Jesus was an Essene. He was part of this group of people that, he talks about how he believes they really had the truth. And he goes into like the diet and how they lived, and it's super interesting. But then also, going back to the law of one, and something I've been thinking about lately is he talks about God, and God is basically just the set of laws that we have injected ourselves into in this universe, right? So it's like, and Eisen said this. He said, God is the algorithm of perfection that is running your entire existence. And so I think of like, we have free will, but God is essentially these barriers that we've set for ourselves so that we can exist within some sort of a container and have an experience, and that really resonated with me. It was really interesting to like think of like, you can't just do whatever you want and get any type of outcome that you want. Like, we put ourselves in this game that has rules for a reason, because it has to work that way, in my opinion.
I believe, for me, my years of alcoholism and addiction were predestined. Because my father is on dialysis and still drinking, and God bless him.
Just still going.
Dude, savage,
Hook me up to the machine, get me a drink.
Savage. God bless him. And, his father, and then my grandparents on my mom's side, all alcoholism, and then here I come, and that's what they say, our generation is doing, is we're the chain breakers. We're here taking on this tall order of the same pattern, the same generational shit, and we're putting a stop to it. And we're unraveling all the generational stuff, and that's what I'll see a lot in plant medicine too. Actually, my last sit, I saw, I've been working on a lot of anger stuff coming up for me. And it's stuff that without bypassing is surfacing for me in my relationship. And but I was shown my dad when he left when he was 7. I remember that fight. I was taken back to that fight, to that night when I was 7 years old, when they split up and they were screaming and yelling and he left. And then it showed me his father. And I've never met this man. He died in El Salvador. And he's screaming and yelling, doing the same thing. And here I am trying to transmute this energy. And it's just heavy work.
Yeah, and there's only one way that you can transmute it is it has to come up first.
Yeah.
You have to see it, and it has to cause you some sort of suffering,
Yep.
right? Otherwise, you just stay unconscious to it,
Yep.
and then you're not the chain breaker. But how do you reconcile the difference between, especially someone who's still in it? How do you reconcile when you see someone that they have to go through it, between they have to go through it and they need to change it and they have to take full responsibility for their lives, because that's where it gets difficult for me, where it's like, I want to take full responsibility for my life and I want to change my life, and I will always default to that, because I think that's kind of my answer, is like always default to full responsibility, even if it is something that you have to go through and you don't get to change it as hard as you may want to fight it. But what would be your reconciliation between those two things if you see someone that they have to go through and maybe they have to suffer a little bit more, between that and, hey, you got to change your life, you got to take full responsibility, this is your fault.
Yeah.
When ultimately what we're talking about is if they made a contract, it's not really their fault. It's not their ego's fault, at least.
Right. Yeah. Well, I default back to what Dolores Cannon says on this, and she says that, and it just resonates with me, a lot of her material. She says, like, the homeless man, or my sister, for example. My half sister is currently strung out on heroin, living on the streets. Right. And she lost both her kids. And how do I make sense of that? you know, is it a form of bypassing if I just say, oh, that's her contract and that's the frequency she holds in this polarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's the good and there's the
Because that
bad.
very well could be true.
Is that the contract that she signed in order for us to have that polarity and that perspective of what can exist? And just like the homeless people that are holding the signs on the corner, like, is that their contract? Like, I don't know, but it kind of makes sense to me,
Yeah.
you know, because I get to see that polarity in the world.
And it's also a role that has to be played to some level, right?
Because of polarity.
Yeah.
You know, and so, like, I don't know. I mean, that is the big paradigm, is like, why is the world the way it is? Why is there suffering in the world? Like, I don't know, but I know all I have control over is myself.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been shown in ayahuasca too, is I was shown in Ecuador all these images of, because I was following these pages of these kids getting blown up in Palestine. And I'm watching it every night and just getting so furious and getting so sad for just what's happening. Like, this is the world we live in, you know, and with the narrative that they have over there. And it's just like, you're bombing children, dude, you know, and
Which is fucking,
it's insane.
I mean, it's insane that they still have people backing them too.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's just, I'm at a loss of words.
yeah.
And so
The level of unconsciousness needed to support this shit is unbelievable.
yeah, and it's like, what do they say? It has to just get really bad in order for people to wake up.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm just like, where's
Where's the point?
yeah.
How
Where's
much
the
does it
line?
fucking take for us to wake up?
Where's
How
the
much
line?
does it take for our hearts to break open?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mine was COVID. I was in
same.
fear. I thought I was going to lose everything. I was mandated to shut down all my businesses, and you know, I had this aha moment where I was a Friday. We're normally super busy, and we were shut down. I go in and lights are off, right? And I'm in the middle of building out my third location. I'm renovating a new home. I'm basically broke. I have all my chips on the table, and I'm on Redwood Road, driving past a state-run liquor store, and there's a fucking line out the door. And that's when it hit me that this was all bullshit.
Yeah.
Because my haircutting business was deemed non-essential, but the fucking liquor store's open. And so that was just like a major shift in my life that changed a lot of things for me. And the way I look at, like, who's pulling all the strings, who's calling all the shots. And it's the same people that are bombing Palestine.
Who do you think's behind that? Let's get into it.
You know, I don't know. You know, I know there's the whole biblical argument with Israel but I don't know much about that. All I know is that there's women and children being bombed.
Yeah.
That's all I know. Is that there's innocent people in the name of trying to kill Hamas in some hostage narrative. Like, it's like the school shooting analogy. You know, if there's a school shooter, would you just blow up the whole school to kill the shooter? And it's kind of like what they're doing.
That's exactly
over there.
what they're doing.
That's exactly what they're
But that's why it's just so clear to me that that's been their intention from the beginning. These people know what they're doing. And so from that perspective, I see, to me, and maybe this is just my own humanity, is like, these can't really be people that are this evil unless they've just been completely hijacked, you know, by something higher, some higher force that really has an evil agenda that we can't even understand.
Yep.
You know, which is ultimately what I believe. Maybe it's a little bit crazy to think that there are higher beings that have bad intentions for humanity, but I think it's crazy to believe that we're running the show here.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe there's, whether you want to call them demons or reptilians, extraterrestrials, I really do believe there's these beings that have bad intentions for humans for whatever reason that is, whether they're harvesting us for energy and they need us to stay in these low vibrations or else they're not going to survive, which, from their perspective is like, they're just trying to survive, same way like we eat cows, we raise them and keep them in captivity just to kill them. It's like we use them for food. Maybe they're using us for food. Yeah. To me, that makes a lot more sense than we just all happened to be here through evolution. And now we've got to this point that we're killing women and children. And there are millions of people cheering them on. To me, that doesn't register.
Mind capture. And they know the game. They know the game.
They're 100 steps ahead of us. That's the biggest point to me. That's like, there's beings that are much more advanced than we are running this shit.
Yep.
And
when you go down that rabbit hole, which I have, Gaia, cosmic disclosure.
Yeah.
Cosmic
Dude,
disclosure.
Gaia was like my go-to when I was like awakening. And mine was COVID.
Yep. Same.
Mine was COVID too. COVID, dude, immediately they're like, you have to wear a mask at the grocery store. And I'm like, what's going on here? Because I've never trusted the government.
Yeah.
I never liked the government. I never liked authority. It's just kind of like my natural state of being, just like be a rebel against anything that wants to like try and control me. And so I saw this whole thing. And at first I was scared too, of course, like we all were, because we didn't know is the fucking zombie apocalypse coming, But as soon as they started like trying to control us, I saw it pretty fucking fast. I was like, oh, I'm not wearing a fucking mask.
Yep.
You're not going to tell me what to do. We also never shut our business down. Technically, to dealerships, if they had a mechanic shop, they didn't have to shut down, which we didn't have a mechanic shop, but I wasn't fucking closing our business a single day. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Come get us.
Yep.
And so we didn't shut down.
See, I ended up opening up early.
Did you?
Cool. I did. I opened up after 2 weeks because I saw through it all. And then people were reporting us to the health department.
Did you get any trouble from that?
I wouldn't respond.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's how it works. I
just wouldn't even respond.
Just ignore them and they go away.
Yep. I'd get messages that come over, so-and-so's on the phone, tell them I'm not here. Tell them I'm not here. They can come down here and talk to me.
Cool.
I'm not shutting down my business.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it took me a few weeks to figure that one out. But yeah, back to the rabbit hole, the military disclosure people, that come forward, these ex-military officials. You have these deathbed confessions. There's a guy, I just went down his rabbit hole, Philip Schneider. Philip Schneider is an ex-military official that worked at a base in New Mexico. And he goes on a tour for 9 months after he retires, blowing the whistle on what's going on there. And they ended up killing this guy after
Really?
9 months. Yep, they found him dead in a hotel room, hung by a guitar string.
Interesting.
Crazy. Philip Schneider. Yeah. You can look him up.
Okay.
You can look up his talks. But he talks about, and this is what opened up my mind to that whole reptilian, like, how could this world be so evil?
Yeah.
Right? And he talks about there's a base, I think it's Los Alamos in New Mexico. Yeah. He says there's 7 layers to it.
Underground.
Yeah. It's called a dump. Okay. I forget what dump, the acronym for that is. But he says as the levels go down, the eviler it gets. And on the 7th level, he says, you guys aren't even ready for this. But he says the reptilians that are running the show. And these reptilians are cloning humans with insects and animals, and they actually feed on humans. A lot of these missing people are being funneled down to these projects.
Interesting.
It's so interesting. But he was the first one that exposed the whole reptilian agenda, which is like some sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
It really is some sci-fi stuff going on with Draco reptilians, and so that is a rabbit hole to explore. And some people think you're crazy when you start talking about reptilians that are ones behind the scenes, but there's a lot of military officials saying the same exact thing. Deathbed confessions, saying the same thing.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, the more it's like, you really think we're here alone? That's the craziest opinion to me. Like, if you really think about it, like, if we do exist in this infinite universe, why would there not be so many races that are millions of years ahead of us that are actually running the show, and we're some sort of pets or some sort of game that they're playing, And like, ultimately, I believe in like a perfect universe. I believe in a benevolent God that, this ultimately is just a dream. That's just a game. And so therefore everything's perfect. Like, everything balances itself out. As much as we can get caught up in all the evil and be like, why? I think when we leave the game, we'll be like, oh yeah, because it doesn't fucking matter. The evil that exists here is not really going to be seen any different as like the bad guy in Mario. When we leave the game, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight against it while we're here, and we shouldn't speak up against it. And I've felt pretty strongly, as you do, as everything that's happening in Palestine is just sickening on every level. I'm not sure how much we have control. My biggest thing has just been, I can help them feel the things that we all need to alchemize as a collective. And so, that's kind of been my focus. Is I don't want to see kids getting blown up every single day. But when it does come into my field, I allow myself to feel it. I don't turn away because I feel like us holding that space for them and helping them hold that pain is actually what's going to help them, and is what's going to help humanity at the end of the day. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's the role that I've felt like I can play above and beyond just, bringing some awareness, having conversations, talking about it. But yeah.
I was shown in what I was going to say earlier, in ayahuasca, I was shown all the images that I watch of killings on Instagram, on YouTube, in movies, and I was shown all these images of murder. And what grandmother ayahuasca showed me was that by me participating and giving my attention and my awareness to these ugly, dark images, I was not only carrying that frequency within my psyche, I was also contributing that to the collective psyche. And so what she said was, what my takeaway was, stop participating. I'm participating.
You're
with
feeding
it.
the game.
It's the mind capture.
You're feeding it.
That's right. And so, like,
because your awareness gives it life.
That's right. It gives it life, and it made so much sense. It gives me chills talking about it. And so I've pulled away from that. I've unfollowed a lot of things. I can still hold a prayer for it, right? I can still have my thoughts with them and share my prayers with them, but I'm no longer going to watch the ugliness of it. And it's funny how Instagram is very quick to shut people down, but they'll show images of children being blown up. Right at the top of your feed, I'll open up Instagram and it's the first image that comes up. And it's just like, that's interesting,
And even the messaging they put on it with like the covering it up, I feel like almost takes it to another level as well. Makes it enter your psyche in a different way. So yeah, that's super interesting.
Way interesting stuff, man.
So yeah, man, had an amazing time in the jungle with you. And love what you're doing with the energy stack.
Thanks.
What's next for you?
I think what's next for me is just integration. I've sat quite a bit this last few years, and I think that was kind of a download for me. And also talking to Paywin. Paywin had that reflection with me. Paywin was with us in the jungle. And he actually sent me a voice memo on the Telegram chat in the fellowship group. And he had this reflection of taking time to integrate, because he knows how much I sit And you know, it and he had a Hape reflection for me. He says, I see how you use Hape. You use Hape, I think, more than you should, you know. And he just got way honest with me, you know.
Which is one thing I really love about Paywin is like he's this super calm, gentle, open-hearted, loving guy, and then he'll tell you exactly what he needs to tell you.
Exactly.
Which to me is a huge sign of a grounded man.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because when Paywin speaks, you listen.
Yeah.
You know, and I really sat with that voice memo and I listened to it a couple times and it was a couple minutes long. And so I think for me, where I'm at, I'm having a lot of those triggers come up for me, and I'm still navigating those. Maybe not how exactly like I should be or how I've been shown, because that's where the real work is in the integration.
That is the integration.
That
It's
is
like
the integration.
especially you ask for the integrations and it's gonna go, okay, here we go.
You want to
I'm gonna bring it all up.
That's right. Here's your shadow.
Yeah.
You want to raise your consciousness.
Yeah.
Let's look at your fear. Let's look at how you react to life. Let's look at the images you're watching. Let's look at what you're consuming.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think right now it's really taking the time to be still, is what Paywin said.
Yeah, and ground in.
He said take the time to be still, and I went, hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's exactly what I need to do. Because I'm a go guy. Yeah, I come back from ceremony and let's do stuff, let's create, and it's just like, no, man, I really need to ground my energy and be still.
And I've seen that a lot with men that are tuned in recently. Is like, it seems like Mother Earth is coming in and being like, hey, let's slow down.
Yeah.
It's time. It's time to ground stuff in. And I don't know if I talked to you about my ketamine experience I had just a couple weeks ago with my mom. But I connected to Mother Earth, and you know, I've talked about it before, but ketamine to me is just this, and I've done it twice, and both times it's just been this super powerful experience. But when I dropped in this time, I connected to Mother Earth in a way that was just so fucking beautiful, man. Like, and I've consciously tried to connect with her, especially the past 2 years. I try and get my feet on the grass, especially in the summer. In the winter, I kind of forget. But I dropped in with her, and it was like just this warm, beautiful mother feeling that was just like engulfing me and like showing me how much I care. And then she kind of like showed me my mission and was like, I need you to be able to teach men how to ground. So I need you to connect with me more. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm on the grass every day. Yep. You know, I won't forget. And it's just like, I feel like a lot of conscious men are really in this phase right now where it's like, hey, we gotta we've learned so much. We've seen so fucking much. We've done the medicine. We've read the books. And now it's like, hey, embody it.
Yep.
Bring it in.
Yep. And that's what, that was another takeaway from the Quechua, was how they have no electricity. They have no Wi-Fi, and hearing them laugh. Remember, you'd hear them in the kitchen.
Yeah,
they're laughing every night,
all the time,
so happy.
It's
just like their humor was just like contagious. You didn't know what I didn't know what they were saying half the time, but they're just laughing amongst each other, and I see how they're so grounded with nature and Mother Earth and Pachamama, and that is what it's about, is merging the higher self with this physical human body on planet Earth. Yeah. We're incarnated on this consciousness, and merging our higher consciousness with this physical reality so we can create from that space, our heart space. And so, because we are the connection for her. We are the channel that's bringing the light into her, because we are her. Right? There's no difference between us and Mother Earth. We are her awareness. And, you know, bringing that light in is what is ultimately what is going to take her to the next level, take her to a more beautiful place where our kids can now enjoy an earth that is a beautiful place, where evil doesn't exist around every corner. That's what I believe. That's what I choose to believe, is that, like, we are her awareness. And she also knows exactly what she's doing.
but we are kind of that channel to like bring the light in to move her up through the densities.
Yeah.
You know, so
and it's cool to think that that our species being involved in our, whoever created the DNA genetic strand, like whoever engineered that it's incredible,
Yeah.
right? And so we're like the chosen species to be like the caretakers
yeah,
of planet Earth, and some of us are doing that, and a lot of us aren't doing that.
yeah.
And it's finding that balance.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is like, we like to think about like who created the humans, but my thought process when I think about that is like, because a lot of people will say like, well, like the reptilians came in, the Anunnaki came in, and like the Anunnaki were basically geniuses of DNA engineering and all this, and
Interbred.
the way
Nephilim.
the way I always think of it is like we were created by Mother Earth for herself. She brought in whoever she needed to bring in to create her own consciousness that was going to be her guide through these different densities that we're moving through. Yeah. And, I choose to believe that she knew exactly what she's doing. She still knows what she's doing. She's taken us exactly where she needs to take us. Mm-hmm. And we are going to end up, at least I hope for a time, in a much more beautiful world that is a world of peace and love and connection. Yeah. And I choose to hold the frequency of that probably for as long as I live, no matter how dark things get. Yep. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not going to choose to see it another way, because that would be hard, I think, to let go of that hope. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I think underneath that, with the remembering, especially with the help of plant medicine ceremonies, ultimately, I think that's what we all want.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful world for clean water, clean air, healthy foods.
Happy, connected people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Playing the hand.
Love everywhere. Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing music.
Well, I think we're on our way. Yeah. I hope. I hope.
So too.
I choose to see that.
And I think it starts with me.
It always starts with
the
me.
Individual. Yeah. And I was shown that many times too. It's like, you want world peace? Okay, let's show you
find
the
peace
images.
within yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if you
find peace within yourself.
Palestine, let's get you right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely been my focus. And a lot of times it's that's the one thing is like we live in this world where it's like progress seems like it's so short term, but true inner work is much slower than the world would have you believe. Like it seems like the world teaches that like you should be able to get successful within a few short years. But from what I've seen is like the path of knowing thyself is something that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And a lot of that time it's going to feel like I'm moving backwards, and it's a slow process, but it's also one of those things where if you don't enjoy the process itself, then you can get lost and you can get frustrated and you can become unhappy. But as soon as you can make that perspective shift to be like, I get this beautiful opportunity to heal. It's going to take longer than I want, but it's this amazing opportunity to get to know myself on a deeper level and ultimately become an instrument in God's hand to take the collective to a better place. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think it's the exact reason why I chose to start sitting with plant medicine was to do that work. Was to do that work that my parents weren't willing to do.
Yeah.
And that's why they say, you heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back, because I'm healing my shit. But my shit was passed down to me too.
Yeah.
I was programmed with that, with my parents. And the way they raised me, the words they used, their example. And so that became clear, like, oh, not only am I healing me, I'm stopping that. I'm not passing that down to my kids to the best of my ability. And I'm healing whatever was passed down to me.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to do that. And I've actually recently felt this big shift, because I have felt recently this heavy burden of alchemizing some shit that was passed down to me, even from my grandparents on my father's side, who I never met. And, you know, I've had this attitude of like, why am I the fucking one that has to have all this shit manifest into my life, while I see the other people in my family seem to have easier lives than me? And it's, you know, it's not true, but seem to have easier lives than me, when I know I'm meant to be the chain breaker. It's like, why did I get burdened with this shit? And, you know, recently, even just, it was after my ketamine experience, actually, I connected to my grandparents, and I felt this honor that I'd been chosen to be the chain breaker for their stuff. And it's not a burden. Yeah. It's a fucking opportunity to know yourself on a deeper level and have a deeper experience, because I have done this a few times. You know, I'm not a young soul anymore. Yeah. And I chose to come here and have a deep experience. Yeah. And that's what old souls do. They understand on the outside of this game that the real goal is, you want to have a deep experience. You don't want to come here and just make a bunch of money and have an easy life. You want to have a deep experience.
Yeah. It's funny, just that concept of like knowing yourself, know thyself.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I didn't know how deep that can be. Because
never ending game.
Never ending. Like you said, it's generational. It's these limiting beliefs and these patterns that are passed down to us, and it was like, oh, this is way deeper than I had anticipated. It's a peeling back of the onion. You know, it's what we say in recovery is, you know, we walk deep into the forest of addiction and alcoholism, and then when we make the decision to get clean, we're not going to turn around and just be on the tree line. You have to walk back out. And that's kind of like knowing thyself. Like when you make that decision, it's like, oh, I have to go unwind all the programming and all the conditioning that was passed down to me. Yeah. You know, and it's deep work. It is. And I've had that feeling of like, hey, can I rescind my decision and know thyself?
Can I just live my life?
Yeah, because it's heavy. Yeah. It is heavy work. And so it's
and that's been the big shift, and that's kind of what I talk about, is like when you first come into this healing process, right? You're like, okay, I'll heal for a couple years and then my life will be good. Yeah. Where it's like, no, you live your life while you heal, and then but first you have to see it for the beautiful opportunity and the honor that it is to carry that for your bloodline, because just about anything you do on this material plane is not going to last very long after you're gone. But the work that you do will be remembered as your legacy forever. You know, even your bloodline, the ones that forget your name, your signature will be etched in the frequency that they hold and the lives that they live. You know, no amount of money, if you make $100 billion, you can only pass that down to so many generations before it's completely forgotten. Yep. But the work that you do on yourself will be your legacy that exists within the frequency of the universe forever. Yep. Yep. And in that is so much fucking honor that you've been chosen to do the work that you've been chosen to do. Right. And such a beautiful opportunity. And, you know, I've just really recently shifted my perspective on that. And like, you know, I connected to my grandparents, and it was just like, I just felt like this, just like so much honor that they chose me. And, you know, I shifted from this is a burden, get me out of this, I just want to live my life, to wow, thank you. Thank you for choosing me. So it was a huge shift for me.
Yeah, it's such a shift in the old way of thinking of if I check all the boxes, right? And that's what I had done. I had gotten sober. I had built the businesses. I'd made more money than I could ever dreamt of.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the reason why I got into barbering, but that's what unfolded. But so I went down and checked all the boxes, right? And that's when I found myself questioning, like, why am I still discontent? Why am I still unhappy? And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of know thyself. Found myself with ayahuasca. And I was like, I'm decommissioning all this shit.
Your role is so much fucking bigger than making money and surviving.
Being successful,
yeah,
right?
So much bigger.
Program of like, be successful, make money, make a name for yourself, and so I really love the way you put that. Is that it's a legacy.
It's a legacy
that we're leaving here. We're recoding our genetic DNA strand because we are our ancestors, right? We're this accumulation of thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
And it's like we get to put our strand into that and recode that for the next generation.
And that lasts forever.
Yeah.
So the work that you do on yourself and the healing that you do is the only thing that will last forever. It's the only thing that will last forever. So.
Aho, brother.
Aho, my brother. Fucking love you, bro.
Love you too.
Thank you so much for doing this. We'll definitely be doing this again. We had some technical difficulties that ruined our flow a little bit, but we still went with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Mike Canales _ on Instagram. Yeah, we're big Instagrammers.
Yeah,
we
buddy.
like to put our message out on that platform. Yeah, pretty much.
Cutthroat Barbershop. If you need to get your hair done, I'm going to start coming to get my hair cut too. And then also the Energy Stack.
Yep.
You guys get together once a month?
Yep, we do once a month at the Herc, downtown Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And if you follow at the Energy Stack, you can see all the updates.
Yeah, and definitely worth going to. I'll tell you, like, my experience, I showed up because I love you, and we've started off by singing our names, and that was super fucking weird to me. And by the end, after I had conversations, I was like, this is fucking magic, what Mike and his wife are doing. So we'll definitely be coming back to more. If you get the chance, go check out the Energy Stack. Super fucking cool. Love what you're doing for the collective, bro. It's fucking beautiful.
Thank you. We'll be announcing our men's retreat, our third men's retreat too, coming up this summer down in southern Utah.
Hell yeah.
That's 3 nights, 1 night of medicine, psilocybin, and it's epic.
Cool.
You get a group of men.
When are you guys doing it? Do you know yet?
We don't have a date yet. Probably July is what we're looking at, maybe August.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, brother. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Love you.
Much love.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.